Hello everyone, this is Shashmit from Paraguay Technologies. Welcome to this video demonstration on how to set up an approval workflow on invoices, expenses and purchase orders. In this video, I will cover creating a workflow using workflow templates, working with approval workflows for sales invoices, working with approval workflow for expense bookings, and using approval workflow for purchase orders. In one of my earlier videos, I have shown setting up workflows in Dynamics NAV 2016. For those who have not seen that video, I am explaining it here. So workflow is a new functionality introduced in Dynamics NAV 2016 which can be used for process automation, which involves particular steps that executes based on an event that occurs. We can define events, conditions and their required responses for workflows in Dynamics NAV 2016. So let's start by creating a workflow for sales invoice first. Type workflows in navigation bar. Open the link workflow templates. There you can see various default templates available as administration, finance, integration, purchase, sales documents, sales and marketing. For sales invoice, choose the sales invoice approval workflow and click new workflow from template. Here in the default workflow, we have various events defined and based on various conditions there are defined some responses. In the response page, we can define what to expect. For example, adding a record restrictions once approval is sent, setting the status as pending, changing the default approval type. We can change it from approval type. Once it is done, click OK. And enable the setup from here. Next, let's create a sales invoice. Select the customers in the header part. Open the sales invoice page, new, and select the customer. Next, select the items in the sales line part. When I click on release, you can see that the document is not released because we have enabled a workflow for this to get released. And also I cannot post this because this requires an approval before posting. So here I have the status as open. When I click on send approval, the status gets changed to pending approval, and this is what I have defined to change the status once the approval is sent. Now I navigate to the another user's role center and assign this user as my approver for the document. I open the approvals user setups and I have already assigned the approver ID as the administrator. Now type the document approvals on approvers role center and click open the approval entries. And locate the open entry which I have just sent for the approval. Click on records to open this entry. It opens a sales invoice page. From here I can approve, reject or delegate the approval request. Once approved, the status of this sales invoice changes to released, and it can also be posted from this page or it can be posted from original user's role center page. Next, I will create the workflow for the payment journal for expense booking. For that, I open the workflow templates in finance section. I have two options to set up workflow for the full batch or workflow per line. So let's see what we have there in workflow templates. In the finance section, I have two options. One is for batch approval and one is for line approval. So I am selecting the batch approval because I have to send the full batch for the approval. Click on new workflow from templates, and I leave all these settings as they are. I'm leaving events, conditions and responses as they are in the default setup. And leaving it as it is. Once I have checked all the responses, conditions and events, I quickly go and enable this finance setup. So I'm clicking enable to enable this. Now let's create a payment journal now. Open payment journals from navigation bar, and quickly I enter a line which I will have to pay to a vendor, which is an expense booking for my company. Giving account number, recipient's bank account number. Payment method as bank and amount as 100. If I try to click approval for line, it is a restriction for me. Click on send approval request, and there is a line approval which I cannot use because I have not enabled the setup for the line approval, but I can send this approval as a batch. Now the approval is sent. When I click on post and I click yes, then it won't let me to allow posting because I have added a record restrictions in the workflows. Now let's check at the approvers role center. Open the relevant entry and navigate to the record, and let's approve this batch. After approval, I can now post the payment journal. Or I can post the payment journal from the requesters role center page. Now the system is allowing me to post because it is now approved. At the last, let's now create the purchase order workflow. For that, I have to navigate to the purchase documents. And click purchase order approval and new workflow from templates. I am leaving the settings as they are as the default setup and enabling the setup for purchase orders. We can check the approval workflow by reopening any existing purchase order and sending this approval for the approval. And I can send it again. This was the basic setup of workflows. You can also change the default setup as per the requirements. Thanks for watching this videos. For more information, please visit www.paraguide.com.